All right, you want to get superhero level biceps? Follow me right here. Here's your free bicep guide.
Now I want to start this off by saying that I don't train biceps very often. I used to train them a lot. As I got more into looking at my body as a whole, I started to notice that my arms were getting a little bit bigger than my shoulders, bigger than my back, and I wanted to place more focus on growing those other body parts.
When I do train arms, I almost always start with this supinating bicep curl. It gives me good blood flow, good range of motion. I focus on getting a squeeze at the top and getting full extension at the bottom.
After a couple light sets, I like to come over and stretch. I want to get a good long stretch through that bicep, shoulder, and chest. We get real tight in these areas, and if we're tight and training these areas frequently, it's common to get some problems such as tendonitis. Stretching will help alleviate some of this pain and minimize the potential risk for injury. The other thing stretching is going to do, it's going to help lengthen that muscle fiber. Think about blowing up a balloon. Before you blow up a balloon, if you pull on it, stretch at it, and practice that elasticity, it's much easier to blow up the balloon. In the same way, we want to warm up and stretch that bicep before we really get aggressive with pumping blood into that muscle. Stretching does send a signal to the muscle to relax. So we don't want to hold the stretches very long. About 15 to 20 seconds is all we need. And I like to continue to do these warm-up sets, progressively increasing with each set. One final stretch here on those forearm flexors and extensors. If you're having problems like golfer's elbow or tennis elbow, these are two stretches that you would want to hold for at least 60 seconds so that you get a good stretch into those tendons. Okay, so that's what we want to do. We want to go through a muscle-specific warm-up, get a good stretch. We want to stretch out the bicep tendon. We also want to get into that forearm so we don't have any tendonitis problems slowing you down from getting massive arms. All right, now that we got a pump, let's go. I'm going to take one more set here to finish off this warm-up with the double supinating curl. I really like the tension I get across the shoulders, biceps, and the core too. But we can't go as heavy, so time for single arm.
In general, we can go heavier with the single arm movement, but one of the things we can also focus on is technique. As we go one arm at a time, we want to focus on keeping that palm all the way supinated once our elbow's at 90 degrees.
Number two, I think it's very important to keep that elbow in front of the rib cage, maybe even letting it come forward slightly as you come up. This is going to allow you to put the most tension directly on the bicep, versus as we let our elbow shift back, we start to take some of that weight into the shoulder and neck.
Talk about keeping the elbows forward. Here on the preacher curl, we don't have a choice. The preacher curl's great because it allows us to stay very strict with our range of motion.
And I actually prefer using a medium to lighter weight when training arms. I feel like I get a better mind-muscle connection, and I'm able to train them again the next week. I used to have a problem training too heavy on arms, and I would only be able to train them once a month because they were always injured. So I take my focus on form, technique, going very slow, and getting a good feel out of each rep.
Nothing really says I want these arms to grow quite like a single arm concentration curl,
where there's a lot of different varieties, from sitting down and hanging one arm between your legs to setting up a bench like this, or doing it on the preacher curl itself. The single arm bicep curl allows you to get a great isolation. When performing a concentration curl, we don't want to bring the weight all the way up. We want to bring it so that that elbow is perpendicular to the ground. Right there, that's where we're at rest. Anything beyond that, we're not going to have tension. We also really want to focus on that eccentric part of the motion, that slow lengthening against the tension, the downward phase. That's when we're going to get the most tears in the muscle. That's going to lead to that muscle getting bigger and stronger. All right, so when we work the hammer curl, we're gonna work
this forearm a lot too. It's going to give you a lot of size. That this area, a lot of times this drops off and then our arm looks weird. So we want to build this too, get a nice ham bone forearm. So the hammer curl, we want to drive that thumb right towards the shoulder. Keeping that hand in a neutral position. Now we can also take this across the body. I like to try to drive the thumb to my sternum. A little internal rotation.
Hammer curls are a great exercise for both the bicep and the forearm, always noted by that neutral grip. Because this is a little easier of an exercise, I like to keep it towards the end of my bicep workout and perhaps a little bit heavier than previous sets. Here we have another variation of the hammer curl with a rope and cable. Cables are great. They allow us to attack from different angles. The dumbbell is always going to be resistant to gravity. So how you stand, how you sit matters. The cable, we can change positions. Here, I'm starting to supinate the rope, really working that full contraction on the bicep. Lots of different ways we can work with the rope. I like to use it to pump flush blood through the muscle at the end of a workout. And here we go, the often neglected but never regretted post-workout stretch. We just put those biceps through a lot of work. Now it's time to take care of them, stretch, realign those muscle fibers, encourage the healing process so that we can go and attack that muscle group again next week. My best advice at growing these biceps is to just be consistent, be mindful of your form, and take your time. Going heavier or doing faster repetitions or not taking the breaks in between you need to will not get you to the finish line any quicker. And just a fair warning, there's no need to overtrain these biceps. You don't have to do extra biceps on back day if you're doing a day for them alone by themselves. Take the time, do it right, don't rush it.
All right, so there you go. There's a full guide on how to build a nice full bicep with a peak. But the secret to really stretching out your sleeves is building that tricep, especially this guy back here. Stay tuned for the next one.